Okay, well, listen, let's dive in. Let's get started. I know we had quite a few people show up. I'm sure some people will trickle in over the next, 5, 10 minutes. That's okay. Um, we'll be sending this recording out to everyone anyway. But yeah, welcome to the Future of Drones and Construction Roundtable event. Before we dive in with introductions and just getting into the geeky fun stuff, bit of a goal for this session, just so everyone's on the same page. Over the last number of years with cmBuilder, we've been very fortunate to build a community of very like-minded individuals, construction technologists, passionate people about construction in general, superintendents, VDC, BIM folks, etc. And we just realize every once in a while it's nice to get together. And the goal here is to bring value to learn about workflows and just like lessons learned, maybe a bit cathartic at times, sharing things that don't work so well that you hoped would work better. And then hopefully talking a bit about the future, right? So we can, talk a bit about where we think things are going and capture some some perspective, not just in North America, but also in New Zealand and down under as well. So yeah, that's the main goal today. So just we're going to talk about lots of different softwares, workflows, things that work, things that don't work. The goal here is to bring value to everyone on the panel, or sorry, in the event. Throughout the event, for everyone in the audience, we've turned off your chat and camera, but you can throw a question and answer. So if you have questions that pop up throughout there, just toss them in there. Pedro and I will be working the Q&A throughout the talk, and then we may wait. We'll have a session at the end for a Q&A, but if it pops up in the middle and it makes sense, we might just throw the question in there. So if something Wilson says or Jonathan says that really piques your interest, just drop a question in there, and maybe we'll grab it and just throw it into the event as we go. Yeah, so then that's about it. So we'll get started. First things, introduction. So I'm going to introduce the panel here. First is Ben Stocker, construction technologist at Skender Construction based in Chicago. Ben has been with Skender for about 8 years, leading the charge in all things digital innovation at Skender. He has a lot of things cooking over there, which I'm excited to dive into. Ben, all kinds of stuff that you're always tinkering with. Every time I talk to you, you got a new thing you're playing with.
Yep.
But yeah, great to have you aboard, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
Next is Wilson Haworth, VDC manager at Juneau Construction in Atlanta. Wilson's been with the company for over 5 years now, getting hands-on experience with large-scale projects and passionate about all things construction, tech, BIM, and smart digital realities. Wilson is a graduate at University of Alabama. Roll Tide. I had to throw that in there. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Welcome to the panel.
Thanks.
And next, let's head all the way over the pond here. Jonathan Kubiak is digital engineer at Fletcher Construction based in Auckland. Has been with Fletcher for about 4 years, starting as an aerial surveyor and with a background in drones before heading to Fletcher. And thanks for making this appearance in the future, Jonathan. Welcome to the panel.
It's looking good in the future. It's a sunny day.
I like it because it's like I got about 3 feet of snow where I'm at, so I like the future. Okay, let's get into it. So first things first, Jonathan, let's go with you. Having a unique background from the other panelists in that you started with a drone company and then went into industry, so started applying those lessons learned and capabilities in Fletcher. So I wanted to ask you first to paint the picture for everyone's benefit of how we got here. Like, seems like the last 5 to 7 years, just drones came out of nowhere all of a sudden in construction. Maybe can you walk us through the evolution of drones in construction in the last few years? How did we get to this place?
Yeah, sure. So I started off just in plain retail when DJI opened a retail store here in Auckland, New Zealand. And I was there as they launched the new Mavic Pro. You remember that when that came out? And that's when the whole world went absolutely nuts about drones. Everyone wanted one. Everyone needed one. Everyone crashed one. And it all kicked off. So it was all consumer stuff. But after a while, you get bored of teaching people how to recalibrate a compass. And so I was looking around, and we had this commercial side of the business. We were selling commercial drones in New Zealand, but not that many. And so I was looking at the markets we could break into. And one market that I thought was really undertapped was the survey market in the construction industry. So that there was no dedicated RTK back then. The DJI RTK was only for the film industry, but we were using an Australian solution for a PPK, bolting that on, running it. It was a Cloud Geomatics, and so that was bolted onto the drone. When I say bolted, it was Velcroed onto the drone, and then you had to adapt the camera so it knew when the photo was being taken. So there were wires plugged in, little USB battery packs, and any one of these connectors would wobble and ruin a whole flight of geotags. but it was the first easily available, and actually when it all came together, it worked really well. It was the first surveying solution for the market, and so I pushed the hell out of that and got really good traction within our market here. And then Fan and Variety K came out. We kept pushing, and it went from being, hey, yeah, we've got guys that can come in and do that, to the companies themselves, such as Fletcher's, going, look, this has got to be in-house. And eventually they phoned up and said, can we give you a job? So that's my story.
Fantastic. And I guess, like, so the first application was aerial surveying. Did you foresee at that time, like, just like in that very immediate future, we're like, oh, we're going to be doing all these other things with that? Or is it kind of walk before you run at that moment when it was first being adopted on sites?
I think it's walk before you run. So the project I got embedded in was a big motorway project north of Auckland that goes, it's only 19 k's long, about 14 miles, but it goes through, I mean, we've moved 11 million cubic meters of earth. I can't think of the imperial conversion for that, but it's massive. It's massive. The cuts and fills, you go from 55-meter deep cuts, that's 150-foot a cut, to 120-foot, 40 meters of fill. It's in the space of half a K. So the volumes are huge on there. The geotechnical challenges were massive. So when I joined there, they just wanted monthly flights to pay their bills. But I kind of went, after a while, there was a lot of as building going on. There was a lot of, can we get this? So I said, okay, right, let's up the frequency. Let's up the outputs. Then COVID came around and we went into the reality capture space and started putting spherical imagery all around the site on a regular basis so people could work remotely. And it just became a real, I mean, the drone is the tool. It wasn't that it was drone centric, but it was that mass data being available to everyone. I mean, we had on our platform where you could view the geometry, we had 300 users. Now 300 users were not engineers or surveyors, but you could have health and safety checking grades of haul roads. The fleet manager was checking with his GPS trackers that the utes weren't parking in dumb places. All of these things that I never predicted, but we gave everyone access to that and enabled that. And the drone was the tool to do that, because the sky is the most convenient place to capture all this data from. And so that's where we went from there. And now we're pushing that to the wider company, because that worked incredibly well for us on what was an incredibly challenging job.
Interesting insight. Like, typically we see flashy new technologies finding a problem to solve. Sounds like what you just described, the insight is that you were being pulled, right? You had this thing, all of a sudden people were pulling you. Wait a second, I need as-built. Wait a second, I could look at, quantities of cut and fills. And, they were just, I just have this problem to solve. Hey, you over there with that little plane, get over here and help me solve it. That's fantastic. Let me move over to Wilson. How about you, Wilson? When was the first time you started dipping your toe in the water with drones, and maybe what were the first applications that you were seeing? I know you mentioned this morning before you were spending all your morning on concrete pour coordination, and then in afternoons on flying drones and all the fun stuff. What was the first kind of experiences you had with drones?
Yeah, so my first experience at Juneau was to solve a problem, which was quantify earthworks. There was a project on the Beltline expansion. It's a big pedestrian-oriented development. There's a lot of apartments and offices and commercial spaces going up on it, and it goes through a lot of really neglected portions of the city, toxic dump sites, old landfills. And so we're building an apartment on an old landfill, and we had to quantify the amount of subtitle D toxic soil that was coming off of that landfill. And they said, Wilson, go do it. Here's some tools, go do it. We didn't have any drones. I had a laser scan, just gotten a laser scanner at the time, and somebody's like, oh, you can go use a laser scanner and use Civil 3D and some of the surveying software to go quantify it. And it was cumbersome. I was trudging around with this super expensive piece of equipment in the mud, and it was caustic soil, cancer causing soil. So I was like, I need a better way to do it. Talk to people in the industry, and they're like, oh yeah, we've got these, drone solutions that can quantify that in 15 minutes. So it's like, done, sold. You tell me I can get out of this toxic soil, I'm gonna do it. So that was and we had a couple of drones in the company at the time, but they were being used for sunset pictures of tower cranes. So we had this hardware that was serving a little bit of a marketing purpose, and with a little bit of a software integration, we could go from sunset pictures to actionable data-driven analysis of all of our construction sites. And so that was how we got into it. And then it was the superintendents were seeing that they're getting these frequent reports and like, we need this across every project. So we just dipped our toes a little bit in and then dove headfirst and went from one drone on one project to 16 drones across 16 projects with 32 pilots. Like, we've got everybody who wants to can become a pilot. They get access to that data because we find that the drone data, that those daily reports of what our as-built conditions are so valuable to be able to make these data-driven decisions.
That's awesome. It's like, it sounded like it started with a candy solution. It's like nice to have nice images from the drone, and became a painkiller solution, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we have all these problems that the supers have and stuff like that. That's great. So follow-up question. I guess you touched a little bit on this, but can you elaborate a bit more? How have these applications changed what you're doing now? So you mentioned, you went from one drone, one project, 16 drones, 16 projects, 32 pilots. What are you doing now, and what do you think the future applications could become available as the technology and adjacent applications? You mentioned software and hardware applications. As those things grow, maybe what do you think could be capable at Juneau in the future?
Yeah, so our workflow started with being reactive. We wanted to understand what was happening. And where we've taken it now is it's a very proactive solution. We're reporting, we're analyzing on the as-built conditions before it happens. We're able, with drone technology, to create a connection between the physical environment and the built environment, and the digital environment and the planned environment. So a lot of our workflows at Juneau center around connecting those two ecosystems. We have this perfect plan. Our VDC department spends a lot of time and resources on creating building information models that are dimensionally accurate, that are validated, that contain everything that's going to go into the building. I've got a saying in our department that we build virtually and assemble in the field. So we have this wonderful model that highlights what we're going to do in the built world. And now combining that with drone technology, we have a plan and a path forward and a way to analyze and report on what is going on in that built environment. So it started with earthworks. Do we get our building pad set? Do we get our foundations set? And then it was like, okay, we get these dimensionally accurate photogrammetry or orthomosaic maps, 2D orthomosaic maps. Can we bring in and overlay foundation plans? Okay, we've got our foundation plans accurate. What's next? What was that next evolution? So we're like, okay, we're staying with the structure. What if we do all of our building elevated decks? Those start to get more complicated, and that precision just goes from like couple inch accuracy to now like we're wanting these centimeter accurate workflows to be able to bring in stuff. And now like the next evolution is, do we go from 2D plans to 3D models? And can we compare 3D drone photogrammetry models to 3D BIM models and get real-time workflow? And then so we're exploring some options right now with some AI solutions to be able to report on those deviations back from the built environment to the planned environment and cut out the middleman. Like we want our ideal workflow is fly, act. Right now it's fly, overlay, report, analyze, act. So the future of what our workflow is going to be is fly, act. And that flying process we're seeing more and more now is becoming autonomous. There's starting to be ways where you can get like the drone in the box solution where it can remotely press play on the construction site, have a drone take off and safely do it. We've got AI controlled drones that allow us to capture data in an accurate manner on a construction site, even with tower cranes. So wanting to boil it all down to just, we want actionable decisions frequently. The more frequently we can get the drone information, the quicker we can get those reports, the more we can act on it, the faster we can act on it, the more money we can save, the better product we can deliver.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. I was having a great conversation with a gentleman named Frank Simonelli from Arc Building Partners up in New York just recently, and he was talking from more the president's seat, of just like driving the industry and his company forward. He was talking about digital feedback loops. As an engineer by trade, construction has just had terrible time with feedback loops over the years, right? Especially think of an architect. They design a building, doesn't get built for years, right? Once they do those drawings. And now you're saying where you can get to is fly the drone, instantly get data, feedback, deviation analysis, verticality reports, these types of things that potentially could happen in the future, and take action, immediately, right? And do so in a somewhat autonomous way, which is pretty exciting. Now, before I go to Ben for the next question, Wilson, a quick question, a follow-up question just came in from John. John McDermott. So how do you go about getting other employees P107 certified? Were there volunteers? Were people forced to go get it? Were there additional incentives for people to get licensed? That's coming from John.
Yeah, our 107 pilots are people that are passionate about doing it. I think the selling point I've had with them is at the end of the day, you can have the hardest day in construction, but if you get to go play with flying robots, that's pretty cool. Like I get paid sometimes to play with flying robots, and I can't undersell the value of how fun it is to be able to go do that, and where these people are willingly taking on that extra responsibility because not only are they seeing the value, it's improving their day-to-day options. It's also just fun.
So was there any incentives? Like, did you pay for it, or is it more just like people?
We will provide the training for it. We've got training documents. Our drone service solution provider has trainings available, but yeah, there was no additional incentives other than it was just, we had a lot of passionate people who were wanting to take on that responsibility, and they knew they were supported if they did take on that responsibility, that whatever they needed to be successful at that job, we would give them that support.
I got my start in sports, and we have a saying, attitude reflects leadership. And I hear you talk about your passion towards the topic. I'm sure the folks that are around you, if the leadership in the organization is getting certified and they're taking these steps to get them better themselves, it seems like it's probably gravitational for others in the team to want to get that as well. So that sounds pretty cool. Ben,
I just want to add on to
yes,
Wilson's answer there, though. But like, it definitely, I agree with what you're saying. You have to find the person who's already passionate about it. You can't, if you just force someone to get their Part 107 and say, hey, you're going to be the person taking drone flights every day, week, whatever cadence, then they might not be as enthusiastic to do it. They might not care to do a good job. But if you find that passionate person, might be thinking, while they're flying, oh, how can I, make this map more accurate? Like, oh, I noticed some actually problems on last week or whatever, what can I change this week? They're going to really dig into it more and care about it more. And then you get better results because of it. So that's a really important factor. You can't just get anyone. You shouldn't.
There's so much I've found about the people who are doing it too, that are like, all these guys that are like, they had a passion for photography, and they're talking to me about the light settings on the drone. I'm like, okay, I didn't know about that. I just hit play on my flight app and it went. But they're like setting like the white balance and the light stuff, and they had this just underlying passion. I had one person who saw the camera sensor on the DJI. And he was like, oh, that's the same sensor. That's a better sensor than I use in my camera. I love that. And like, it's just opened up these we've had cool conversations that normally wouldn't have happened.
It helps that we're using them to generate models and things as well, because I've been doing this for years now, and I still get satisfaction on those days where I actually need to do quite a dense model like urban or something, and you just look at it, it's like, oh man, that's like I'm in a virtual world and I made it, It shouldn't be as satisfying as it is. So yeah, once people see that, the first time they see a point cloud is that step 2 finishes processing and it fires into life. Actually, step 1, the type point cloud, the first time people see that, when they're doing photogrammetry, they're like, whoa, that's incredible. And so it's not too difficult to leverage off that passion for people that are going to enjoy it. And you need that passion because you need them to have that insight. There's still a bit of an art to doing some of this well. And so you need that sort of artistic passion in the people that are doing this.
Jonathan, I still feel like that every photogrammetry model I make. Every time I get that email, it says like, oh, this model is finished processing. I go check it out and I'm looking at like all the corners and stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, this looks really sharp over here. Look at the detail in this. I get excited every time still.
Yeah, no, it's when I hear you guys talk and I hear the photographers of the world, they're like baristas, right? It's like I grind the beans just to this fine level. I run it at this temperature. When you talk to a true passionate coffee drinker that making espresso, it's very similar to the photographer that's looking at all the angles and lighting, and you guys building models. It's pretty cool. There's a craftsmanship to this, which is fantastic. So Ben, you're truly passionate with a number of technologies. I don't think we have enough time in this call to cover them all.
Yeah, but this is a 7-hour call, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone, you don't have any meetings, do you? No concrete pours like Wilson, hopefully planned. Actually, Jonathan, You just started your day, so you're in trouble. No, so you got a lot. Flying drones is one of them. What can you talk about? What your experience has been so far with drones in construction, and who we talked about this in our conversations past, like who benefits, right? Is it internal stakeholders, clients? What are you doing with the drones in your projects, and who's getting the value ultimately at the end of the day?
I literally could spend the next 40 minutes of our meeting here just going over that answer, but I'll make it quick. So this kind of goes back to me getting started with drones too. But when you asked who benefits from this, is it the stakeholders, our project teams, whatever? My first use of drones, like we bought a Phantom 3 just for taking those pretty sunset crane photos you guys mentioned. And actually, it wasn't for sunset crane. We were trying to take, we were trying to take, sorry about the dog barking, if you can hear that.
No, that's okay.
We were trying to take photos of the interior of a large atrium in the middle of a building. That didn't work out so well. Drones back then didn't fly very well indoors, so it might have crashed. And yeah, but anyways, we moved on to a project where it was outdoors, and there were 12 buildings all in a small, like, I don't know, maybe 3-block area or something. And there weren't a lot of like drone solutions out yet. They were like just getting started, if there were. And I was like, oh, this would be really cool to take one photo and see all of our buildings here on one site. So I got that drone that we crashed, got it refurbished, and then I just went out once and just took some photos of each of the buildings, one of like the whole site. And I sent it over to our owner and just said, hey, just did this for fun. Thought you'd like to see this, get some progress on your job site. And all he replied was, this is amazing. I want it every week now. And that wasn't even any of the, photogrammetry models and maps and, cut fill analysis that we're doing now. That was just some photos that I threw on like a OneDrive folder. So obviously things have advanced a lot since then. We're doing a lot of the other things that both Jonathan and Wilson were just talking about. So, just from the beginning, the benefit it was huge just for the client side. But now on our project team side, just getting all those insights that we can take action on right away, like Wilson was just talking about, when if a project team is like, oh, well, we need to figure out, we think we're getting close to the end of this, of all the earthwork on this job site, but we want to see how close are we actually to the design surface. And we can either just use the most recent drone flight, or in that case, we wanted to be as accurate as possible. So we just did a flight the next day then. And, within a 1-day turnaround time, not even, we were able to get an exact cut fill volume down to that design surface. So just getting quick insights like that, like Wilson talked about, going and laser scanning that before, that would have taken, this particular site I'm talking about, that would have taken a good solid day or two to laser scan probably. And then you're building it, and then you're analyzing it. You're looking at a multi-day project there versus under a day to get all of that with a drone. I was able to fly the whole site in 45 minutes or so, I believe. And get almost just as good at information. So let's see, where else was I going with this question?
We're talking about value. So you mentioned internal, so like the owner just seeing the scale of their projects. That's cool. That there's some value there. Cut and fill operations, maybe estimator / project director who's trying to keep things on time and on budget, being able to understand how they're doing earthwork wise. What are some other applications you meant? Maybe architects, perhaps.
Well, I guess one thing I want to touch on too is people kind of dismiss those pretty sunset crane photos in the marketing, but that is really a huge aspect for it too. One, for your company to marketing to show off, but then when you invite the owners, architects, whoever to these projects too, and they get access to your drone media, and if you while you're going out and doing your mapping missions and whatnot, if you just put on your marketing hat and take some of those nice photos too, they will love that. The owner team, architect, whoever, and just you providing that to them, and then they get to show off the job that you two are working together on. That just strengthens your relationship with them too. Because
it's
maybe
really interesting. It's really interesting you bring that up, because we got a job site where It's from day one, we've actually got the digital execution plan the way we wanted it. Okay, so we've got laser scanners, we've got drones, we've got weekly updates, we've got this, that. And then just as a cherry on the top, while we're doing laser scans, handheld, all of this stuff, we do a series of spherical images above the site, chuck them in the platform. Now, the client is a big regional water supplier, okay, and they're really on board with the digital journey that we're doing on this project. And every so often on LinkedIn, they put a picture up being like, we are so proud of what these guys are doing out in project, real digital focus. And all I see is a screenshot of the spherical image looking at the site. I don't see a single point cloud. I don't see a single cut fill. I don't
so
see
much
the
more
BIM
than that.
compare. I don't see any of that. But the client's like, oh my God, this is like digital focus to the hilt. Look at this. You know, it's funny, but we as surveyors or digital engineers or whatever, we forget the power of that photo that the people don't get to see when they stand there on the ground. Yeah.
We've had those exact same owners as well.
Yeah.
Our weekly flight standards, so we require, drone flights every week. We have the map plan. So first flight is, let's get that data. And then a video circling the site. That's all the OAC meetings. That's how we kick off our OACs. You hire Juneau as a contractor, you're going to get your progress updates, and it's going to be a superintendent talking to a drone flight. And then we have the spherical 360 panoramas from the sky to give those progress updates. And the clients on our site we don't restrict drone data to just the internal project teams. I've got owners on our teams, I've got architects, I've got design teams, because I want them to know where the construction progress is too. And a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Yeah. So maybe just, Wilson, if you don't mind, there's a question that came in from Jonathan Wong. So asking what program you use for taking photos and converting to models of Polycam. He's asking, and so this is where we can get a bit more specific. But Wilson, maybe do you mind talking a bit about your current workflows at Juneau? What are some of the use cases you're trying to tackle? You already talked a little bit about it: scanning, photogrammetry, excavation analysis, as built. But what's your kind of standard workflow at the moment, and where are things maybe you're experimenting with that you can share?
I mean, my goal is to replace 3D LiDAR laser scanning with photogrammetry. I think pretty strong believer that we can get that with the right workflows to be accurate. So I'm all in on drones. And so we use Drone Deploy as our platform to do flight model creation, reporting, analysis, user management, data management. So they're kind of a all-in-one shop for us, and they've been a great partner along this way. But our workflows are in the earthwork space, quantifying stockpiles, getting those weekly cut fill reports, doing overlays of foundations, doing overlays of penetration plans on elevated concrete decks. And we do those, that pre-pour overlay with the drone and the penetration plan. I can't overstate how important that is and how much that has supplemented our laser scanning workflow. We've concrete decks. Once you set stuff in stone, you're literally setting these buildings in stone with concrete. It's costly to go back and change that. And we had a workflow we're trying to document that as-built condition with a laser scanner as close as, there's time's money in construction. So there's a small window of when that deck is complete and ready for a laser scan and when concrete is arriving, and you've missed that opportunity. And that's usually a 8-hour window. That's not enough time to scan, process the scan, bring it into BIM, report, compare. So we're like, you know what? What's important in that thing? It's the edge of slab, it's your formwork, it's your penetrations, it's your embeds. The rebar doesn't matter as much. The PT matters, but only on an as-built condition. So we supplemented that entire workflow with drones, being we need to buy our field team time. I hated making the phone call to a plumber to be you have a sleeve that's out of place and it's 3 a.m. and you're pouring concrete at 4 a.m. It was, I wanted to give them as much time, and especially if we had anything that was an edge of slab bust that was going to require extensive changes to the rebar and extensive changes to the post-tensioning cables in it, that required a lot of people to spend a lot of time and effort and could ultimately delay that construction activity. So we utilized drones to then compare quickly on the critical items to buy ourselves time to catch those critical items to make sure that we had the the fundamentals in place before we proceeded on to the next step. And so part of our like pre-concrete pour checklist is get your edge form up, fly a drone, get your sleeves installed, fly a drone, get your rebar post tension stuff, do the rest of your things. But 2 out of those 3 QC checklists involved fly a drone, do a drone compare. And we're on a 5-day cycle with high rises on when we're pouring concrete. So, getting an extra day, an extra hour was critical, and drones enabled us to do that.
That's fantastic. I love that we're getting so detailed here. And I think with the people that signed up here, we're all construction nerds, so we're getting right into it, which is fantastic. And I was in a project recently, maybe not that recent, maybe 6-7 years ago, up here in Vancouver, Canada. And the market's been pretty hot here for a while, but at that specific time, it was extremely hot, just unbelievable amount of high-rise concrete construction happening. And I remember the superintendent saying to me, "Hey, we're ready. We've got everything. We're ready to pour this slab. But the last thing we do, we need to get a sign off from the structural engineer. Like the engineer of record has to come off and sign this off." And they just stopped the site because they were just so busy that they had to wait, for a few days to get them out there. And to your point, I remember him at the time being like, "I wish I could just fly a drone here." Like, just like, or like he was thinking about doing FaceTime. You're like, "Here, I'll just show you FaceTime." No, I got to physically be there. But from what I understand now, with all these tools, like people are fine with signing off using these means and methods, right? They don't need to physically be there because they can trust that data that's coming off the drone or other means and methods, which is great. Fantastic.
A massive improvement we had on our motorway job was we've done, depending on how you count them up, there are about 45 rock faces, and you can do all the boreholes you want. Those things never look like how the geotech report from 6 years ago said it was going to look. And so it's always been a case of you go and we do a lot of blasting, did about 300 blasts and a lot of milling, and you go back, you do another 5-meter section, then you need it reassessed geotechnically. Now, the way we used to do that is the geotechs used to come in with their little pocketbooks and the knives and their whatever they do, and they draw up we'd shut down the site, draw up a plan, they'd hang out there for a week, write a report, and it'd be about 10-day turnaround. And instead we went, well, we don't have time for that. We've got 45 rock faces. We've got a limited earthwork season here in New Zealand. We've got stuff to do. And so we flew the drone, but instead of like your usual cut fill kind of stuff, we're there like 15 meters, 10 meters off the face, doing a really insanely detailed flight. Build up a point cloud that is extreme, but insane density. But once that's all done, we could actually be getting sign off or adjusting the design to suit the new features found in that rock within 45 minutes. This is 10 days down to 45 minutes for the actual decision making, and we never stop work either because the drone. I mean, it's challenging when you're in a 22-meter wide rock cut. You want the drone 15 meters off the face, and the milling head's in there somewhere, and you're trying not to fly into all of this. And there's people driving through, but you're doing it without shutting down the site. So you're making everyone safer, faster, cheaper, and better decisions. I mean, you can't argue with it.
Yeah. So I wanted to go back to you, Jonathan, because one thing that's unique about what you're doing, Ben, with Skender doing ground up construction, big, large scale tenant improvements, Wilson doing high rise construction, all kinds of stuff down in the Southeast. But Jonathan, you guys are doing lots of horizontal work, which is just like a whole another animal. Maybe you can talk a bit about these large scale horizontal projects for infrastructure work. Can you speak to your current workflows or handling that level of data capture? We've talked about this with our team before, just an unbelievable amount of data you're capturing if you're building a multi-kilometer, road and bridge project. What tools are you using and what value are you getting from flying the drones on your jobs?
Sure. So hardware-wise, it was Matrice 200 with the old PPK system, then Phantom 4 RTK, and now I've got the Matrice 300, which is just amazing. The processing side of things, I'm still old school processing offline. I have experimented with all of the cloud-based processing providers, but I can do it faster offline, and I feel I have more control over the quality. I recognize I'm a dinosaur in the industry with that, but that's fine. I'll stick with that. The real trick is you're capturing a lot of data, but how quickly can we decimate the hell out of this so it's useful, and so really having that understanding. The first thing I learned pretty quickly on that job when I'd get called out for doing little as-built flights and things is you go, oh, well, what sort of quality do you need, guys? Oh, it needs to be good, yeah. And what they mean is it needs to be accurate. I'm like, yeah, but what resolution we need? Oh, it's got to be the best. And I'd sit there doing like 1 centimeter resolution map. It turns out that they're quantifying a stockpile, for goodness sake. It's like, do you really need 1,200 points every square meter? It's like, come on, guys. Oh, I'm going silhouette. So yeah, the first thing I found very quickly is find out what the user of that data is doing with it, and you make the decision for what level of detail, quality, and so on that they get. The other thing I learned quickly is even if they say, I just need a rough and dirty one, never do that, because someone else will use that data for the wrong reason. So you've still got to be very strict on your quality standards in terms of accuracy. If you've got something that is not going to be accurate enough for other purposes, make sure you're bringing down the quality of the output to suit that. So the resolution, so that you can't try and do anything better than you got. But going back to where I'm working in, the big tool for us that really changed the game was when we started getting all that data into Propeller. So that's Trimble, Stratus, Propeller, however they brand themselves. We had, when we first started, we had 6 people on site using that drone data on a regular basis. And all they were doing was monthly flights, and they were quantifying how much dirt had been moved, matching it up against the claims, because who would have guessed it? Truck counts aren't accurate, and then paying the bills accordingly. And so we said, hey, this would be a lot easier if we put it into this Trimble Stratus Propeller product. There was a lot of pushback, and in the end, the survey manager went, sod it, it's coming out of my budget. I don't care, I want it. And that was the best thing that ever happened, because within a few months, we had 290 users. We upped the survey frequency to weekly, which is a big job on a 19K motorway, getting that data turned around overnight, because they don't really have time to wait 5 days for you to process it. But we're delivering that. We decimate it down to, we say, the size of a fist. So it's 6 centimeter resolution, but we fly it at 4 centimeter to get the better quality, to pick up the control well. But actually, the verticality is generally within 20 mil, and we're very strict on the quality. So it's it's pretty intense, and as I say, it comes back to that. Once you make that data available to everyone, you do run the risk of other people using it without the insight that they maybe should have to use it. I think my favorite complaint I ever got was, I think your surface is 5 mil out up here. I'm trying to check the depth of my bark chip, to which I went, I'll take that as a compliment. What the hell are you doing? It's like, okay, sure. So yeah, but yeah, so horizontally, it's there's a lot of the terrain follow is really important on the drones, and there's a lot of sort of following through sight and that, and processing as you go. Now we've got these really good laptops. That's made a big difference, because I'm processing while flying, doing it a bit, stitching it together, getting a lot of work done that way. But yeah, sharing through Propeller was an absolute game changer for us. And you log into our Propeller account now, and thankfully I've got someone up there keeping it organized, but the amount of designs and all the revised designs sitting in there, the scale of measurements, we broke their platform with too many measurements. They had to go and reconfigure it, because they never guessed that someone would pass 100,000 measurements on one map. And so they had to completely reconfigure their server to now handle 10 million, because we managed to break it for them. But yeah, that and now they've got these apps in the field where we're bringing it back to the field, which is what we've been pushing so long, because now as built all of our utilities and everything, they can be on a crew link in the field. And so before anyone goes and starts digging something up, because like 75% of the services we hit are stuff we've put on the ground, which is ridiculous. We should know where that stuff is. And so in the field, they're actually loading up the crew app, where they've got a crew link, and that is just off a QR code in the Smoko hut. So it can be a contractor, it can be anyone, it can be a delivery driver not knowing where to put his stuff. It's all just linked straight to browser, and then they can know, should I be getting a bit more investigation done, because I can see that there's a service going through here, or am I very clearly in the clear? I'm 10 meters away from anything. So that's been really good for us. But yeah, the big wins for us have been the paying the bills, because we've saved millions of dollars on bills, where you go and and then the contract says, no, it's this much. You go, well, here's the data week to week. It just doesn't back up your claim. It simply doesn't. Even when we were looking at as-building all of our rock mesh, they were being paid on square meterage covered, which they decided was square meterage of the rolls that they brought to site. And so we then went and modeled that with the drone, and then they said, how can you do that? And we went, well, we can, and we demonstrated it to them. They went, damn, because their claim included all these leftover bits sitting on top of the cuts and everything. It's like, no, guys, that's not how it works. So, yeah, so there's anything that needs quantifying has been done with a drone pretty much until you're down to that sub 15 mil level.
They must have felt like they showed up at a gunfight with a butter knife.
Pretty much, yeah.
Hey, I think you owe us more money. You're like, actually, here's all the data proves that this is exactly how much dirt was moved.
The biggest advantage we've had recently, though, has been we've had a lot of. I mean, so we've got 1 in 100-year storms, right? Somehow we've had 6 of them. In the space of 7 years. Not sure how the maths work, so I'm not a weather mathematician, but maybe they shouldn't get their bonus this year. But anyway, those events are insurable, and sure, they cause damage, but it's really fantastic to sit down with an insurance company, and even the specialist construction ones aren't familiar with the workflow like you are. And for us to sit down and we claim, well, we're claiming all of this, and they go, but surely you hadn't just finished that. It's like, well, drone flight, tick, tick, tick. Yes, yes, yes. There's the progress. There's 3 days before the job. There we did have the correct controls in place. There you can quantify the quantity of those runoffs. We can run a hydrology analysis on the ditches and on the ditches, the things to divert that runoff. And we were completely within specification. We were there the day before the event. There is the evidence. Please pay our claim. And that's where it's been very valuable as well.
Fantastic. And I can attest to the comment about you and your team, Liam, and the group breaking things. You're pushing us to the limit every day with your stuff as well, which is fantastic to collaborate with you guys. So just double click on that. You mentioned, you kind of hinted. So unfortunately, for those who don't know, in other parts of the world, New Zealand encountered another one of those 6 or 700 year events within 7 years, or whatever you mentioned. Just recently, another extreme weather event just happened. Very difficult situation. Number of communities cut off. People not, bridges destroyed, roads destroyed. When you have a situation like this and access is cut off, what are some of the opportunities to leverage drone technology and analyze the damage, and what can be done from a planning perspective to help with the rebuild? Seeing as Fletcher is a major infrastructure builder in the country, can you talk a bit about this and just kind of like unfortunate recent experience of like how you might want to tackle a problem like this, being able to leverage some of these new tools?
Yeah, sure. So we've got lots of our topography in New Zealand's very up and down. So we have landslips and underslips that happen quite often on our roading network. The size of the population, we're 5 going on 6 million, so we don't have big 4-lane highways everywhere, with the protection that you might get in other countries of the same size. We're not Japan, even though we're the same land size. And so network resilience is really important because these communities might only have one road, or their diversion could be 280 kilometers just because of one washed out bridge. And so what the drone's doing, so tomorrow and Friday, I'll be going around one of the regions where we have finally got those communities tentatively reconnected, but it is very tentative. And so now we've kind of pushed the mud out of the way, cleared the rocks out of the way, stabilized the worst of it, sluiced off the worst of it. Now we want to actually get a proper geotechnical understanding of what's going on and start protecting that. So I'm going to literally do a 250k loop with a geotechnical engineer and a traffic management truck on a road that goes around the whole Coromandel Peninsula tomorrow and Friday. And we will be doing LiDAR flights of every single area where the geotech says that looks interesting, and doing a photogrammetry model of the same. And we'll be doing that rapid. We can get these in under 10 minutes, which we can just put the stop go guys out on the road, get it flying, get it move on, process, and then get that online into Propeller for the guys to assess. The reason that they came to us is because the original plan was that they needed to sort in rope access teams to get into every single one of these sites just for a look, because it's real dense native bush. The LiDAR drone has proved a massive improvement. We got it about 8-9 months ago, and I've lost track of how many slips I've done, not just for the company recently, but also even for colleagues whose houses have got back gardens falling down gullies and things, where the insurance company still hasn't organised the geotech, and we're like, look, we'll give you that peace of mind. And I was actually out at a neighbour the other day, and I did one the day after his whole retaining wall back garden slipped away, and then came back a week later and did it again. I said, your house hasn't moved. the ground that your house is on hasn't moved. And he was like, I can sleep now,
Wow.
because he hadn't, the industry's overwhelmed. He hadn't had anyone come out. And so, but the speed that we can do that is really quick. We're going to do, potentially 2 weeks of geotech assessments in the space of a day tomorrow, and that's without putting people in dangerous situations on the rock faces. In a week or so, I'll be finally getting down to the Hawke's Bay. They're gradually getting their connectivity back. It's been incredibly isolating for them. What they've been through, they've been clearing upwards of 3 meters of silt off roads. But now we're getting back again. We've got to get geotechnical understanding of all of these areas, track the progress, monitor for any movement or of slips, because these things won't stop overnight. They've settled down for now. And the drone's going to play a big part in that. And I'm really looking forward to getting into that, probably for the next, realistically, it could be a year, 2 years, who knows how long it's actually going to take us to rebuild down there. But these are big jobs, and I'm looking forward to it. One example I do love is we had the same thing maybe 6 years ago now in Kaikoura. One of my customers needed to map the seabed. Now the seabed came up on the coast road. The whole earth came down. It was all a carnage. Well, they needed to remap the seabed, and the bathymetry could only get to once you had, kind of 5 meters of clearance or 2 meters of clearance. But then we had this whole seabed that had risen up and become the foreshore. And so you couldn't really get a boat in there. But equally, it was so up and down that it was quite dangerous to walk in there. And so the consultant down there, they came in and said, what's the biggest drone you got? And this was 7 years ago now. And so the Tree 600. I went, okay, we're going to put a target for our we're going to put our survey GPS on the top, because we still didn't have RTK GPS on the drones back then. And then we need to do bathymetry with this. And I'm going, how the hell are we going to do that? And what they did was they got a 15-meter wire with a lead weight on the bottom and a spring-loaded flapper in the middle. And they'd point the camera down, and they gridded the seabed at, I think it was 4-meter intervals. And they would lower the drone. And then when the lead hit the bottom, the spring-loaded flapper would flap open because it wasn't under tension anymore. And the camera would see that, and they'd take the picture. So they had the time recording, and they'd line that up with the GPS. They've since independently verified that scan, and they were within 100 mil for the whole job on 97% confidence of the points. And that's the sort of stuff where a disaster response, we can start doing cool stuff with drones. No one ever would have thought to have done it that way before. This is before we could put LiDARs and things on drones. This is 8 years ago now. But that's the example from the last time things went wrong, and I'm sure in the coming weeks we'll see similar stuff going down the Hawke's Bay.
That's amazing stuff you guys are doing. So great to hear that, and great that you're contributing to the rebuild effort in that way. So there was one question that came about showing stuff. I'm not sure if we'll get there, but Ben, hopefully. But Ben, I want to go to you. I understand you've done some pretty interesting work in capturing as-built conditions in under-discovered areas. Are you able to tell us a bit about some of the most interesting things you've flown a drone over or scanned? And if you could, share a bit about your workflows as well from your side. I know you're a drone deploy user as well. Like maybe you can talk a bit about your workflow from a hardware software perspective.
Sure. So for most interesting, the one I know you're poking at, it's not super construction related, but it's still very cool. I did have the opportunity to go down to Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, and I got to survey the main pyramid that's on that site. I was working with a group of physicists and researchers trying to find like hidden compartments in that pyramid, but they needed accurate plans, drawings, dimensions of the existing structure that was accessible. And drones played a huge part in that, because it's a 100-foot tall pyramid, and there's no good way to get scanners around on it. I mean, you could, it would be very difficult, but it's also much easier to just fly the site in 15 minutes with a drone. And then, very quickly have a nice photogrammetry model where you can pull dimensions off of and everything. So yeah, I did a whole drone map and survey model of the outside of the pyramid, and then laser scanned the whole interior. I was able to mesh those together, and it was huge value to the team. And those use cases could absolutely be translated over to some construction jobs as well too, especially if you're working with existing condition buildings where you have to maintain. I don't know, we've actually done a handful of buildings where we're doing selective demo where they want to maintain the facade of the building for historical purposes, so that the view along the street looks the same still. So you could apply those same principles there, where you're just trying to document historical conditions. But then, yeah, as far as like the use cases into cmBuilder too, and this kind of goes along with the question there's in the Q&A here that Kareem had. Yeah, so I can go over that. And actually, I'm going to share my screen too, because I feel like visuals help a lot for this. So I'm going to share my screen. And all right, you can see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to show a few examples here. This is in cmBuilder. So I do use drone deploy as well, just like Wilson, but then here I want to show how all this benefits in cmBuilder as well. So here we have the start of a logistics plan in cmBuilder, but I want to show you just a little back and forth here of what this looks like if I hadn't taken a drone survey of this site beforehand. So I'm going to turn off that layer, and here's the satellite imagery, the most recent satellite imagery of this site, which is outdated and pretty worthless if you're trying to plan trying to plan a project in this area where nothing is the same. These buildings aren't here. These parking lots aren't here. So I was able to fly this site in, I think this one was like under 20 minutes or something, and be able to create this orthomosaic map and then bring this into cmBuilder. And that's just huge for planning the rest of your project in here, because this is so much more accurate. Now you can actually see, oh, there is a road right here. There's an additional road that was added over here that wasn't in that previous map. All those buildings are gone. Now we can actually see like how close we are to the river here, because it's just more accurate, up-to-date drawings. So like that's just a very simple use case, but it's a huge benefit. Another one I want to go over is, so that's just bringing like the 2D map into cmBuilder, but we also have the capability of bringing the photogrammetry models in too. So we've been talking about these photogrammetry models, and in cmBuilder, I don't know why the buildings aren't loaded right now, but there should be just very generic block buildings in the background. And sometimes that's not going to be super, or most of the time, that's not going to be super accurate to what your building looks like. It doesn't show all the mechanical equipment on the roof or anything. So we have the capability of taking a photogrammetry model, and there are lots of different 3D file formats, but as long as you're able to convert it over to an FBX, which there is a convenient walkthrough on how to do that in cmBuilder's help articles, or whatever you guys call them.
Partially created by you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So my workflow, I bring it into Recap Photo, and it allows me to like trim up the model and get rid of noise around the outside of it, and then just convert it to an FBX and bring it into here easily. Keeps all the textures and colors and everything. So just having your photogrammetry models in here provides so much more context too. So in this particular case, this was a building that we were going to be we're going to be demoing these two buildings on the right here, and then keeping this one over on the left. And then, so you can see here, I got rid of it there, but you can see as I go through here, then you see the actual map was down below there, and then the building starts to go up, blah, blah, blah. The rest of the logistics plan. But what I just wanted to show off though is how beneficial that is to have that existing condition, to know exactly what you're demoing as part of this plan. It's just so much more value than just, even if you have that top 2D, the top-down 2D map, like having the 3D existing condition building provides so much more context. Another little easy, like it seems small and easy, but provides so much value. So here's another job that we were working on. Again, here, this is all the darker map you see here is the existing satellite imagery, and then the lighter map is my photogrammetry model that I brought in. Now this isn't just the map with just the building model on here. This entire thing is the model. And the reason I wanted to do that is because it's a little hard to tell just from this, but there are a lot of elevation changes on this site, including at the loading docks, which was the most important thing for me in this particular case. So really the main thing that I was trying to figure out here was what type of drywall truck we needed that would be able to reach certain levels of this building, because you had weird conditions of these steep inclines at these loading docks. And then also the building itself is tiered like this. So it it would have just been harder to calculate on paper how much, what size truck you needed and what size arm and everything. So I was able to take this photogrammetry model, bring it into cmBuilder, and then actually by default used the drywall truck that cmBuilder had in their resource library, which is already very extensive and has almost everything you can need in there. But I needed to up the size of my truck here, so I just used the little resource request tool here, and then within one day they had the exact truck that I wanted to add in here, so that I could see it worked. And yep, I was able to then work with the actual project team on this and confirm with them this truck is actually going to be able to work. Oh, and something I didn't mention too, it's really nice that the resources in cmBuilder actually snap to the elevation changes of the photogrammetry models that you bring in. It's not just going to go to like a plane on the lowest point or something. So that helps a lot when you have changes in elevation in your models. But yeah, I think those are, we're getting close on time here. So yeah, I'll stop there, but those are some good examples of how you can use all this drone stuff in cmBuilder as well.
Yeah, that's awesome for sharing. Thanks for sharing. I know some of this other stuff you mentioned is maybe sensitive, so you couldn't show. So you showed some other stuff that you could show, and thank you for that. I know there's a question there asking for us to show some stuff. Yeah, so from a cmBuilder perspective, that's what we're passionate about. It's like the idea of grabbing that data, using it for site logistics planning, making better decisions, dropping in parametric models. It's an authoring environment where you can author new stuff and actually run scenarios. Say, okay, if I use this, crane at this location, and verify that with some as-built conditions, which is great. Okay, so we got a few minutes left. Let's finish with a lightning round question here for each of the panelists. So to finish, let's predict the future. Let's play Nostradamus. I'll ask you, Wilson, to go first. Maybe if there are folks on this call that are new to drones and want to deploy this technology in their projects, maybe there's two things. One, what are some cautionary tales to look out for, and what are the opportunities that they could get if they adopt the technology in their projects?
Yeah. So first part on what are some cautionary tales and stuff. Yeah. Getting started with a program. Don't be afraid to let people have access to that information. There's a lot of workflows we've developed, a lot of problems we solved that didn't come out of my group, myself, or maybe on my team. It was the users of the solution that said, hey, can this software do this? Can drones do this? Is this a problem we can solve? And they wouldn't have even started asking those questions until they had access. So, give people access. But I will back that up with something that Jonathan was kind of hitting on earlier, is if you're going to do that, you got to make sure your data is good. Fly with intention, have the workflows in place to make sure that the data that you're sharing is accurate to the best of your abilities, because the people who do that, who aren't drone experts, who are on there consuming that data, will believe that data is accurate. So if you are inducing error because you're not taking the necessary steps to ensure accuracy, that error will get propagated because they believe it is accurate. So it's kind of two-step, parts. But open it up. Let people do it. Don't be gatekeeping that information. And the other one, 5 years from now, predicting the future, I would, I'm not going to say what I think the future is going to say. I'm going to say what I want the future to be, and that is a pilotless world where drones are flying themselves. It's remote piloting. You got 100% remote job site using. We're on the cusp right now with artificial intelligence and machine learning to do that analysis portion. Cut down that fly, overlay, report, analyze, act workflow, which is now kind of fly and act. Get it to just act. That's any product managers on the call, anybody listening on the tech space, like as much as you can do to, we fly. I mean, I've got people flying every single job site every single day. We're getting just so much data, and to be able to have actionable reports consistently, cut down on the man hours to both capture and create those reports and also analyze those reports is going to be huge. So we can just have updated, accurate, actionable information delivered to our email inbox at the start of every morning. That's what I think the future is going to be like in 5 years.
Love it. I love it. We'll stick around just for everyone. There's a couple minutes over if it's okay with you guys. But Jonathan, you're next. Cautionary tales and what does the future look like? You can either predict it or you can help build it, like Wilson just said. He's going to build the future instead of predicting it.
Yeah, cautionary tale was like I touched on earlier. So I've never like examples. Okay. Example time, day 2 of the job, someone comes in the office, I need this as-built now, I need this as-built now. And they're like, okay, well, I'm busy with something. No, you come with me now, you're doing this as-built. And then he stood over me while I processed it. And as he stood over me, I missed one tick box that would have put the height correct. It was on the ellipsoid instead of the geoid. So inevitably, and then I skipped a QC. Look, my bad, whatever. And the guy was standing over my shoulder and I let him rush me. And then he sat in a meeting and went, it was 34 meters wrong. What the hell? Like, and I was mortified because I'd made that mistake and it was a big mistake. And, to be fair, a 34-meter error is a lot easier to spot than a 10 mil error. So I'm a big fan of that. But yeah, so, but anyway, so that's my cautionary tale. So don't let people rush you to do your data in a, I think I'm being kicked out of the room. Okay, just.
That's okay. We're almost done anyway.
Yeah. So that's my cautionary tale. And then so the way I follow that up is even the other day I was doing it was just for the environmental team. They just visually wanted an orthomosaic of an area. I still put some control in because someone else will use that to as-built a wire or something. What I'd like to see is I'd like to see the classification improve, use the AI, use the machine learning, and maybe even leverage multispectral technology to train classifiers on laser scanners. The laser scanners will only get smaller and better, and I think if we can leverage the other spectra of light to train those classifiers to really be saying trees, roads, buildings, done, goodbye, then that's me out of a job, which is awesome.
I'll use a Canadian hockey reference. You want to skate to where the puck is going. If Tesla can drive cars autonomously just with images and recreating the world as they go and classifying those objects, with large, data sets, why can't we do that in construction? That's fantastic.
We've already got drones doing that right now with Skydia and self-flying drones, AI flight mapping, and all that. It's the future's here.
It's awesome. Yeah,
I love it.
Ben.
I'll just be really quick, but I just want to just kind of tag on to exactly what Wilson said. He stole exactly what I wanted to say about the automated drones and like the drone in the box solutions. Now that DJI and Skydio both have their drone docks out, just need to have sites be legal to fly at. That's the biggest challenge right now. But that's going to be huge. I mean, even before those were officially out, I had one owner who didn't really know anything about drones, like reach out to me and say like, hey, is this possible to like be able to remotely just fly something like from my office in New York while we have a site in Chicago? And I was like, well, it's actually about to come out like right now. It's just not exactly legal in downtown Chicago yet to autonomously fly a drone like that. But that's going to be the future when we can be anywhere in the country or world and just say, all right, all my army of drones go. And then all your sites get mapped and you have all that data without needing that engineer, whoever, to pilot it.
If anybody's on the call listening, make sure that data that's autonomously captured comes in accurately.
Yeah,
the difference between my Skydio maps and my new Mavic 3 Enterprise RTK, wildly different. Much as we can make that accurate and autonomous.
If Skender on the call, can they please put RTK on the drone?
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's okay, people, I mean, we're 3 minutes over. Maybe if you can give us 2 or 3 more minutes. There's one more question for the panelists. What's the most affordable drone equipment that you could buy to get quality photogrammetry scans, and where do I start? So what's like maybe the entry level kind of drone / software stack? Then
you could probably get some old Phantom 4 RTKs on a good price these days. Phantom, and even if you don't buy the correction straight away or whatever, you could turn it on later. They're an amazing craft. I still use it. I love it.
Okay, nice.
I think there's Mavic, DJI Mavic Minis that are out there that are like $900 kind of. So it depends. Are you trying to get accurate surveying information? Are you trying to get consistent weekly flights? Or are you just trying to get spherical panoramic images? I think there's kind of a solution for all of those. out there. And like, you know, the way we started was just on like a pilot based model with a DJI Mavic 2. So, you know, at the time, like a $1,500 drone and a $3,000 software solution that's now scaled up into, you know, what we have.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, it really does come down to what you want to get out of it. Do you want like accurate survey grade, I'm putting that in quotes, survey grade results of your maps, or do you just need to get a photogrammetry model, take some 360 photos, take some, you know, progress photos and videos? Because yeah, then you can go with that Mavic Mini, something like that. I don't know. Yeah, if you want to get survey grade, try to get that Phantom 4 RTK or the Mavic 3 RTK or Mavic 3 Enterprise with RTK, which is awesome. I have one of those.
I have a friend down the South End who makes a fortune mapping dairy farms with a regular Mavic. There's no ground control. There's nothing whatsoever. That the farmers just froth over it.
If you don't need it to be globally accurate, then that's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. On the software side, though, like we're talking about drone deploy being thousands of dollars a year and stuff like that, but there are definitely free or very cheap options you can use if you're just getting into it. Like, I mean, there's a whole bunch of actual like flight planning apps and things that you can use that will connect to your drones that are completely free. That will actually fly the mission for you. And then as far as processing that, I mean, I know a free one that a lot of people seem to like is Open Drone Maps. That seems to be a popular free one. But I don't know. I don't know if you guys know some other cheap entry level options. But there are definitely like cheap options out there if you want to just get into it a little bit, you know, just dip your toes before you spend a lot on enterprise software.
I think so.
Most of the software comes with trials, so yeah.
They got trials that help you scale for your needs. Yeah.
One thing I quite like with Pix4D is there's actually a lot you can do whilst you're not logged in or whilst your trial has expired. Sure, you can't be generating results to deliver to clients because it won't let you do those exports, but you can actually really perfect your technical skills on how to use the software and what to do with it on the Discover version. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, great. I had a little something I was going to show for just like photogrammetry and stuff like that. I won't do it today. I think we're over time. Ben did some good stuff there anyway from a cmBuilder perspective. But yeah, that's just in summary where we hope to participate is from taking that information quickly, fast, easy, accessible, all on the web, authoring, crane location, safety, where you're going to put all your equipment on site, validating, you make the pics, all that kind of good stuff. And then you have a bunch of features like project on terrain, where you can like Ben showed, where you can actually project the orthomosaic image on top of the map and then cut into it with our excavation operations and stuff like that. So there's lots of really good applications from a site logistics planning perspective to further use that data, like Wilson said, in the hands of the project planners and superintendents, and sharing with commenting and sharing links and just working on multiplayer mode and stuff like that, which is a little bit more of a real-time type thing. Which you said time is money in construction. We would agree with that. So listen, I just on behalf of everyone, we'll wrap it. Thanks so much, guys. This was awesome. I think Ben, you nailed it. We probably could. This is probably a 7-hour call that we could have easily done it like a Joe Rogan podcast length, 4 or 5 hours of talking about this stuff. But we crammed it in, and I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time. And I know it was very useful for everyone. So. We'll wrap it here. I'll hang out just for a few minutes if you guys want to take off, especially Jonathan. You almost got booted out of your room there. I'm glad to see that you're okay. I thought you got a hip check there for a second, so I'm going to hip check you out of the room. But seems like you're okay now.
Oh, no, I'm out of the room.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. That's good. So someone volunteered you, hey, like, you're going to get out of this room. I booked it. So, yeah, I could see the situation there. So anyways, we'll wrap it there. Thanks so much, guys. If you want to jump off, that's great. I'll hang out here in case any other questions come through, and we'll call it a session.
Awesome. Thanks
for having me, guys.
Thanks.
Our pleasure. Yeah, that was great.